Again, good morning and welcome to the Florida Chamber of Commerce's announcement of our 2017 Jobs and Economic Opportunity Agenda. I am Mark Wilson. I have the pleasure of serving as the Florida Chamber's President and CEO. Let me start off by saying the business community of Florida is optimistic about the conversations taking place at the national level. And I'll talk to you about why that matters to us. But we're also realistic about the work that we're about to do here in the next couple of months in Florida. We'll continue to set the stage for economic opportunity for Floridians. And we're excited today to share that agenda with you. Standing here today with us at the Florida Chamber are many board members of the Florida Chamber of Commerce. These are business leaders from all over Florida, small business and large, representing hundreds of thousands of jobs in Florida. Also, pleased to tell you, we have several local chamber presidents that are standing with us today. Nancy Kiefer, who runs the Daytona Chamber. We also have two legislators, Jason Broder and Clay Ingram, who also run the Seminole Chamber and the Pensacola Chamber. So there's a group of us here who are part of the chamber movement to make Florida more competitive, and I appreciate them standing with us today. Also, we're very honored to have many members of the Florida legislature with us here today. Many more wanted to be here, some left yesterday, but I do want to acknowledge that there are Republicans and Democrats and Senate members and House members that are standing with us today. And I want to be clear, we're not going to agree on everything, but one thing we agree 100% on is that economic opportunity is nonpartisan. And we're going to do everything we can to work together to get as much done as we can. To honor them in their time, I do want to quickly read with you who's standing with us here today. Senator Bill Galvano, Senator Wilton Simpson, Senator Kathleen Passidomo, Senator Doug Broxson, Senator Jeff Brandes, Senator Bill Monfort, Senator Bobby Powell, Senator Keith Perry, Senator Kelly Stargel, and Senator Dennis Baxley. There may be others coming in and out, but it means a lot to us that you would stand with us to talk about economic opportunity. Also on the House side, Representative Ben Albritton, Jason Broder, Matt Caldwell, Clay Ingram, Larry Lee, Larry Metz, Jeanette Nunez, and Scott Plakin. And also honored to have with us Sissy Proctor, who heads up DEO, a very important partner of ours here at the Florida Chamber. So again, to each of you, thank you for being here and thank you for standing with us to support Florida's job creation. As I said, we're not all going to agree on all of the policy issues, but we're united in our push for economic opportunity. You're going to hear today from several of our board members, and I just want to give you a preview of that, and I'll make a few comments and then we'll move forward. First of all, you'll hear from our chairman, Sid Kitson. He's the chair of the Florida Chamber. He's also chair of Kitson and Partners. Also, Eric Szilagyi is the president and CEO of Florida Power and Light and a past chairman of the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Nancy Kiefer is the president of the Daytona Beach Chamber of Commerce and a board member. And of course, Will Weatherford, former Speaker of the Florida House and managing partner of Weatherford Partners. So I want to start off by telling you, as we look at Florida's economic horizon, there's really two things I would want to point out to you. One, on one hand, is Florida is currently creating 1 out of every 10 American jobs. If you look at all the new jobs being created in America, Florida's getting it right. I think that's why Washington and other states are going to look at Florida's success. So as we say, if Florida was a stock, we'd be buying all of it because Florida has momentum. We've been making the right decisions. But on the other hand, if we look at economic opportunity, we have over 3 million Floridians on food stamps, 3.3 million. We have over 3.1 million Floridians who are in poverty. We have almost 60% of our public school kids on free and reduced lunch. So how's it possible that on one hand we're creating 1 in 10 jobs in America and on the other hand 1 in 6 Floridians are in poverty? Well, that's possible because of what we need to do going forward is we need to create economic opportunity for everyone in Florida. And that's why you see such a diverse group standing with us here today. The agenda we're going to unveil is all about opportunity for people who need it most and about lowering the cost of living for people who live and want to live in Florida. So we're expecting more job growth in 2017. Our chief economist, Dr. Jerry Parrish, predicts another 190,000 new jobs will be created in 2017. That's that's lower than in the past year. Florida's in a fragile place. There's a lot of pressures going on in Florida right now, and we're going to talk about that. We've been growing at twice the national average, and now Florida has slowed. We're growing at about the national average. And so the legislature has some serious choices to make about what we're going to do to create economic opportunity for people who need it, and what we're going to do about lowering the cost of living for people who are here. So here's what we know. A word about our workers' comp situation here in Florida. What we know is after the court case last year, there's a $1.5 billion tax increase on jobs in Florida. We know that at the end of the day, this is going to be a difficult issue, but we know that now is not the time to kill jobs by adding a $1.5 billion workers' comp tax on the backs of new job creation. We also know on the topic of lawsuit abuse, we know that this is something site selectors around the world are looking at. And again, what we're talking about here is what does this mean to the average Floridian? If you take a family of four, what we now know is that the average cost, it's called the lawsuit abuse tax, for a family of four is about $3,400 a year in Florida. So if you're making $40,000 a year and you have to pay $3,400 a year in a lawsuit abuse tax, that is a serious hit to people in Florida that we're trying to create opportunity for. Also, for homeowners, this homeowners fraud tax, some people call it assignment of benefits. We're now starting to see 8, 9, 10% increases in homeowners rates. Again, if you make $40,000 a year, $45,000 a year, and you're a homeowner, and your rates are going up by 10%, 11%, you just simply can't afford it. And this is real, and it's going to impact the future of Florida. Also, I think it's known for 20 years the Florida Chamber has had a strong position against the expansion of Las Vegas-style gambling. But those who want to expand Las Vegas-style gambling in Florida aren't going away, and that's something we're keeping a very close eye on, for sure. Let me just say a word about economic development. One of the most important things that we need to get right in Florida is to remember that we're sending signals globally. We're sending signals across the country, across the world, about whether Florida is open for business. I want to be clear, we fully support Governor Scott and Enterprise Florida's request for $85 million of incentives at the Florida Chamber. I would also be remiss if I didn't tell you that incentives are almost always inappropriate when you look at all the jobs that are created. About 90% of the jobs that are created with no incentives whatsoever. We need to return to the days where this is very limited. Senator Latvala and Representative Boyd last year, I think, had it right when we were talking about really focusing in on where those incentives go. We know that's going to be a difficult issue, just as the Visit Florida will be a difficult issue. But we believe that if we all work together, we can continue to remember this is about jobs, this is about economic opportunity for people. Having said that, our Economic Development Task Force this year, which was chaired by Glenda Hood, a past chair of the Florida Chamber, past mayor of Orlando, Secretary of State, as well as Larry Jenkins, chairman of RSNH, spent the last 8 months hearing from over 1,000 Floridians who've come up with over 250 ideas, most of them long-term, some of them short-term, of what we could do here in Florida right now to create economic opportunity, education improvements, research and development improvements. And I want to introduce you now to Sid Kitson, who is the chairman of the board of the Florida Chamber. Sid will introduce each of our other speakers to tell you about our platform this year, and then we'll be available at the end of the program for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. As chair of the Florida Chamber of Commerce, it is my pleasure to share our 2017 Florida Business Agenda. As Mark mentioned, making Florida more competitive is our top priority. Now, as some of you know, I have a background in athletics, and although I do not claim to be a great athlete, or maybe even a good athlete, I have had the opportunity to play on a number of teams. And what I've learned is that a team is either getting better or it's getting worse. It never, ever stays the same. Great coaches, great teams, great companies, and great states are always pushing to be better. So, for the first time since the Great Recession began back in 2007, the Florida Chamber's latest statewide Political Institute poll shows that more than 50% of Floridians are more optimistic about Florida's direction. Well, that's great, but here's the tricky part. This is not time to sit back and high-five each other. There is still a lot of work to do, and things are constantly changing. For example, Florida's demographics are changing. And over the next 14 years, Florida will lose 215,000 people in their prime spending years. and we will add 2 million more people 65 and over. That means that we will have fewer people buying things and fewer people producing sales tax revenues. And this will put tremendous pressure on the state budget, a budget that relies on sales tax revenues to fund about 77% of general revenue receipts. So the Florida legislature has the opportunity to take action this year to help ensure Florida remains competitive now and into the future by being a champion of Florida's quality of life. Specifically, preparing Florida's infrastructure for smarter growth that includes supporting science-based infrastructure investments and initiatives that allow Florida to grow while protecting our precious natural resources, and advocating for long-term comprehensive energy policy that brings efficient, reliable, and cost-effective resources of energy to all Floridians. Also, to further champion Florida's quality of life, the Florida Chamber and our Florida Chamber Healthcare Partnership support embracing innovations in healthcare to lower costs and improve outcomes, advocating for a better healthcare delivery system with a focus on better outcomes and expanding medical education opportunities. And finally, the Florida Chamber will continue to champion our state's quality of life by continuing to oppose the expansion of Las Vegas-style casino gambling. Florida has much to offer its current and future residents and visitors. I'm very proud to chair the Chamber this year, and now to share details on how we can secure Florida's future through global competitiveness, I'd like to invite Eric Szilagyi to the podium. Eric?
Right. Thank you, Sid. Appreciate your leadership and your chairing of the Chamber. Florida's competitiveness is really essential to securing our state's future. I have the privilege and the opportunity this year to chair the Chamber's International Division, which is headquartered in Miami. Right now, there are more than 2.5 million Florida jobs that are supported by international trade. More than 580,000 of those jobs are in trade, transportation, and logistics throughout our state. 92% of all the manufactured Florida exports are manufactured here. To remain globally competitive, we must focus on moving more goods. We have to make more products for export, and we have to multiply the impacts of trade. This legislative session, the Florida Chamber is going to focus on continuing to support the manufacturing industry, which creates these high-wage jobs. From roads, bridges, highways, byways, telecommunications, networks, our rail lines, our seaports, our airports, and our spaceports, the Florida Chamber is going to work to ensure that we invest in infrastructure and transportation to help move the goods and to create the jobs here in the state. We'll also continue fostering innovation by growing targeted industries. We believe that we can spark innovation throughout the state by increasing investments in research and development through the tax credit and by making key investments in rural infrastructure. The Florida Chamber's competitive agenda recognizes how decisions are made here in Tallahassee and how they can impact communities across our state, particularly when it comes to regulations. To explain more about that, I'd like to introduce now my good friend, Nancy Kiefer, who's President and CEO of the Daytona Regional Chamber, who also serves as this year's chair of the Florida Association of Chamber Professionals. Nancy?
And thank you, Eric. It truly is an honor to stand here and support the business agenda that's led by the state's best and leading business advocate, the Florida Chamber. And also on behalf of my colleagues across the state, both executives that run small and large chambers, we want to thank Representative Jason Broder, who is also the president of the Seminole County Chamber of Commerce, and Representative Clay Ingram, who is also the president and CEO of the Greater Pensacola Chamber, for their great leadership in the Florida House of Representatives. As Mark mentioned earlier, Florida consistently produces 1 out of 10 jobs in the United States. We need to continue to make Florida an attractive state in which to conduct business. Cutting the red tape is a great place to start, and thanks to the Florida legislature and Governor Scott, we've seen more than 4,000 regulations cut in the state of Florida. Our work is not done. While the Florida Chamber has been at the forefront of regulatory reform in the Florida's capital and has also fought battles in the nation's capital, we now turn our focus to local communities across the state. That means identifying regulations that make cities and counties less competitive and working to remove those from the books. The Florida Chamber believes that smart regulations and market-driven innovation, such as ride sharing, will help make Florida more competitive. In addition to the regulatory environment, we need to continue to look at the rising cost of insurance and its impact on our businesses across the state. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce someone who needs very little introduction here. Will Weatherford, former Speaker of the Florida House and now Managing Partner with Weatherford Partners.
Good morning. Good morning. It's great to be here, and don't think it's lost on me that I'm standing in front of my good friends, Florida Senate Chamber. I don't remember doing a lot of press conferences in front of this chamber, but I'm honored to be here. Let me just say really quickly, there are a lot of legislators that are standing behind us here, that are standing with the Florida Chamber to talk about this agenda, and I want to just say how much I appreciate what you do, because I've been there, and the time and the effort and the talent that you put forth to help make your state a better place is greatly appreciated by the entire board of the Florida Chamber, so thank you for being here. Florida has been on an amazing run. Since 2010, it's been just exponential, the amount of growth, the amount of revenue that the state has seen, the amount of job creation that has taken place. It's been unbelievable. But at the same time, as Mark mentioned, we still have poverty that is facing our state. We still have inequality of opportunity for every person who lives here. And the only thing that can solve that is education. There are a lot of problems that we face as a state, but when you really boil down what our responsibility as a state government is, the one thing that can make the largest contribution to our society over the long haul is to make sure that each and every child who lives in our state has an opportunity to get an education. A talented workforce is Florida's best long-term economic development strategy. And the Florida Chamber is going to continue to support Florida's workforce by addressing the skills gap that exists in our state, investing in digital and virtual technology, which is changing the game on how young people are learning, supporting STEM initiatives, championing school choice and competition. Florida is the national leader when it comes to school choice, and we have to make sure that we stay on top. Continuing to improve the entire K-12 system, and of course, empowering Florida's best teachers. If we want Florida to be the place where people want to live and work and have success and chase their dreams, we have to provide the top quality education for their children. The Florida Chamber is committed to that. They have always been committed to that. We will always be committed to that. And so with that, I'd like to introduce back the Chairman and CEO and President of the Florida Chamber of Commerce, Mark Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I wrap up, we're going to prepare to take any questions that you might have here. I just want to, as a point of personal privilege, tell you how humbling it is to get to be President of the Chamber of Commerce in the best state in America. And what you've heard today is a belief system that business leaders throughout Florida have. We need to protect our environment. We need to create good jobs for everyone. We need to focus on education, because it truly is what will make Florida's future even brighter. Also, you heard from our chairman, Sid Kitson, earlier, and he mentioned, he's a former NFL player, and that may be where you heard of him from, but I think it's probably because of Babcock Ranch. And Babcock Ranch has put Florida on a global map. If you haven't heard of Babcock Ranch, it was 91,000 acres. Most of that has all gone back into preservation. Only 9,000 acres are actually being used for development. It is the first solar community in the United States, and it is by far the most environmentally friendly community in the United States. And we are honored in our 101st year of existence to have as our chairman somebody who's known globally and respected globally for innovation and protecting the environment. And also, as Speaker Weatherford said, we have been talking about economic opportunity and equality of opportunity for several years. That is nothing new. But I think as Florida now emerges nationally as an example, when we look at our litigation climate, when we look at our education climate and all things in between, we simply have to get this right. And so with that said, it's our honor today. We're going to make available for you the 2017 competitiveness agenda of the Florida Chamber. And it ranges, again, from the talent pillar to quality of life to lawsuit abuse reform, rural infrastructure, and so forth. So with that said, I want to thank everyone who stood with us today. I know we have a lot of people on tight schedules, but there's nothing more important than creating economic opportunity for people in Florida who need it most. So with that said, I want to thank the people that are here today. I also want to open the floor for a couple of minutes of questions if there are any.
You're standing behind you are several House members of the Chamber that's likely to oppose the incentive deal, including some members are pretty important committees for that issue or subcommittees. Is it your expectation that the Chamber members or Chamber supporters should be up on the idea of economic impact?
You know, I think everybody has to decide that for themselves. Let me just say this. Let me reiterate what I said earlier. Over 90% of all jobs that are created in Florida are created because the conditions are right, the regulations are right. A company needs to expand. Very few jobs are actually created from incentives. So the first thing we have to do, I've spoken with Speaker Corcoran about this on a number of times. The first thing we have to do is make sure we send a message that Florida is open for business, that we're getting our education system right, our regulatory climate right. We have a ways to go on the litigation climate. But as it relates to incentives, I think the more that voters know about the role incentives play, that incentives are, in fact, vital when we're competing for high-wage new industry jobs against other states and other countries. Everyone's going to have to make that decision on their own. I think what we're going to have this year is a very good, adult, robust conversation about how do we grow. We're going to add 6 million people in Florida by 2030. 2 million more jobs have to be created. And it's going to take every tool in the toolkit, from education to a very limited use of incentives, to be able to compete at a level that we need to.
Do you think from the local level to your level that Chamber is sort of united in advocating or pushing for incentives?
I think that's going to remain to be seen. I think that, again, we've been meeting with local chambers of commerce and local economic development groups since the beginning of 2016. I've yet to find a business organization that thinks that job creation using all the tools in the toolkit is something that we shouldn't do more of. So, yeah, I would expect that there will be quite a bit of alignment behind the jobs agenda, for sure.
So to piggyback off this question, if economic incentives don't help create jobs, why are we for them? Why should we be for them?
Sure, I really appreciate the question. So again, over 90% of all jobs are created in Florida without any incentives at all. If you heard what Speaker Weatherford said about 20 years of education reform, we're now the leader in America on school choice and on innovation. And what companies need is a talented workforce. And so they're picking Florida because they see that we've eliminated over 4,000 regulations, we've cut taxes over 50 times. They like the promise. If you look at what Senator Galvano did the other day with a higher education package, we're very bullish on where things go on the education space. Companies want to locate where the talent delivery system is going to be right. In very, very limited cases, to your question, incentives are in play. We shouldn't be using incentives for every job that we create. In fact, they should rarely be used. But yeah, the reason we go after incentives, if you look at the 8 targeted industries that we have, from life sciences all the way on down, what we need to do, advanced manufacturing, exports, logistics, battery technology, what we need to do is when we can compete for those kinds of high-wage, high-skill jobs that leverage our universities and the research and development you heard earlier, in those very limited cases, incentives make sense.
So they're only for a very small subset of jobs.
When we helped create Enterprise Florida in the mid-90s, 20 years ago, the intent then and the intent now is that incentives and marketing dollars are incredibly important, and incentives should rarely be used. But when they're appropriate, they're the difference maker.
Do you think an organization like Enterprise Florida should get back to that 50-50 public-private split as was the initial intent?
You know, I don't know. That was our original intent. I think what Enterprise Florida is going through is they've been going through a full audit for quite a while now. And I think that we need to see how the new president, Chris Hart, and the board of directors, of which I'm on the board, obviously, we're still working our way through that. I think we have to relook at everything we've done at Enterprise Florida, and we have to reflect the realities of global competition. So we have to up our marketing campaign. We have to look at targeted incentives. And I think we're more than willing to relook at everything that we've been doing over the last 20 years. We have to change. As our chairman, Sid Kitson, said, you know, nothing stays the same. We can't go back to where we were. We have to retool all of the public-private partnerships to the realities of global competition and the realities of 2030.
recent OPOG report suggested that the incentives Enterprise Florida has been using have flowed toward large businesses, not small ones. Does more need to be done to direct those incentives to small businesses, and what could be done?
Sure. So if we're talking about small businesses, we're talking about where most of the jobs in Florida are created and are projected to be created. We do not have a personal income tax in Florida. It's one of the reasons that we all live here, and we're doing everything we can to phase out the corporate income tax. So the reality of it is the vast majority of businesses that you would visit on a daily basis, small businesses, there's no incentive available for them because they don't pay a personal income tax in Florida, and they're not organized as a C corporation. And so we've actually been, for 3 or 4 years now, advocating a way to make the regulatory climate and the litigation climate and the insurance climate better for small and mid-sized companies. If there is a way that the legislature and the business community can find a way to create, again, very limited and a targeted way for small businesses to have access to incentives. Look at exporting. If we can make more here and move more through Florida, those are good jobs for more and more people. Sure.
For the first time in quite some time, both presiding officers are attorneys. The committee composition sort of reflects that. Are you concerned about your insurance and lawsuit agenda and sort of the new composition of the legislature over at least the next few years?
Look, I'm concerned about everything. We're at the beginning of a legislative process. Like 2,500 bills get filed, maybe 200 or 250. We'll make it to the end. We have the most pro-jobs governor of any state in the country. I think we have a speaker and a president who want to grow the economy. And I think what happens is when all 160 members that make up the Florida legislature, when they go back home and they hear from small businesses about what this $1.5 billion tax increase on workers' comp means. If you look at some of the legislation that's increasing the cost of living, again, you take a family of 4 and you start adding $400 a month or $4,000 a year, depending on the issue. I don't think this is about insurance companies, and I don't even know that this is about plaintiff trial lawyers. I think this is about people who are looking for economic opportunity and small and mid-sized companies who are trying to grow. So what's the outlook for it? I think at the end of the day, I think everyone wants to have a discussion about job creation. I would imagine this is going to be a fairly unique year, and there's a lot of philosophical differences about how you grow the economy. I'm proud to stand with the job creators that are standing with us here today. This is the business that they're in. They sign the front of a paycheck. They know how to make investments. They know how to get people employed and trained. My hope, again, as I said at the beginning, we're not going to agree on everything. In fact, we'll disagree on some things. But my hope is at the end of the day, we can find that middle ground where philosophies can come together, but also we can make this all about the person who's looking to make a career and a family in Florida.
What changes will you push for on workers' comp?
Well, in fact, we have a workers' compensation task force that started meeting, I think, the day after the court case came out last year in May. Obviously, we were disappointed with what the court did. We think they made the wrong decision. I think they advantaged people who want to kill jobs, quite frankly. So we have already started putting some solutions in place. We believe at the end of the day, this needs to be about the worker, about keeping the workers safe. And if a worker gets injured, then this needs to be about the worker getting back to work as quickly as he or she possibly can. This doesn't need to be about personal injury trial lawyers, coming out of retirement now to get back into the workers' comp business. That is simply going to make it more expensive to live and do business in Florida. So the recommendations that we're putting on the table, we can actually make them available here to you in a couple of days. We're simply recommending that there's certainty and predictability of rates, and there's certainty and predictability of what happens in an environment where we want to keep people safe, and if somebody does get injured, we should all know what happens there. We cannot afford to return to Florida having the second highest workers' comp rates in the country. We're dangerously close to having the highest workers' comp rates in the Southeast now with this $1.5 billion tax increase. So those are the kinds of solutions we're looking at. Happy to talk more detail later. So we have time for one more?
One more. There's been discussion in the Senate committee, and both committees actually, that whatever happens with workers' comp is going to have to go beyond attorney's fees. It's got to be more of a wide-ranging solution, which opens up all sorts of issues. Do your recommendations go beyond the litigation portion and address issues like the benefits paid out, all those sorts of complicated issues that get involved?
Well, Jim, your question's a great one, and I would actually ask David Hart to jump in, but I love how you phrased that, complicated. Our experience is that the personal injury trial lawyers, who are the ones who benefit from this, by the way, they want to make it as complicated as possible, right? They're interested in more lawsuits, more people settling, and they don't much care about a small business who's trying to add a lot of jobs in Florida. And I think that's what's going to make this issue more complicated. The solutions are often simple. What's complicated is people wanting to complicate all of the issues. I'll let David Hart, our Executive Vice President at the Florida Chamber, weigh in.
Jim, what I would share with you is the task force has been looking at a number of other states and what their workers' comp systems looks like. We've had many experts, some from companies that have business in all 50 states, so you can imagine the visibility they have to how the other 49 states' workers' comp systems are working or are not working. And so we looked at all of that this summer and this fall, and the short answer is our proposals will include more than just a narrow fix on addressing attorney's fees, although I think that must be a centerpiece to make sure rates are kept under control. But we also looked carefully at what was the Florida Supreme Court's decision, because they put some channel markers around what must a solution look like to be held constitutional. Now, ultimately, it's up to the men and women, some of them standing with us today in the legislature, to decide which of those ideas from the Florida Chamber do we like, which will be part of a bill that might go to the governor's desk. But we will be advocating at every step along the way for the type of reform that will bring predictability back to the rates and guarantee the health care that an injured worker deserves.